All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of All the Mod 6. I hope everyone is doing great today. I know that I am as always. We're jumping right back into our game save here, and quite a bit has gone on here in our world since the last video has gone up. We've done a couple of streams, actually not even sticking to our normal schedule. We've had some flex time. In my spare time, I've been able to fit in a couple extra streams here or there. So that's what we've been doing. So we actually streamed on a Sunday and a Wednesday as well, which is pretty awesome to get in there. Streamed quite a bit as well. Had a 6-hour stream in there, which is crazy. We did a whole bunch of building, and I'm going to run you guys through that here in just a second. But if you are interested in catching a live stream or catching the full recaps while they're available, of course, the link to the Twitch is in the description down below. Feel free to check it on out over there and give a follow so you guys know when we go live next and you can actually hang out with us. So with that being said, we are going to jump out of that mode, and we're going to come back to that in just a second. So like I said, we did a decent amount of building. Our 6-hour stream, we actually focused a lot on our mine colony entryway over here. You guys can get a good vibe of what all we did over here. So for those of you who have been following along with the series, as you recall, this is our mine colony right behind these walls here. And this was our main-ish entryway from our supply ship into our mine colony. It originally was just a shell of a wall here with nothing more than that, and we've gone ahead and added in a whole bunch of aesthetics to really spruce up the place, and I couldn't be more thrilled with how it turned out. So first, we have the actual entryway itself. We have 2 towers on either side, each with little guard posts where, people could theoretically stand. It's not the guard posts that are actually built into mine colonies, but it's still really, really cool. Obviously, cool aesthetics, keeping with what we've been going for with this Gabbard bricks, the Gabbro bricks, or there's the Gabbro blocks in general. I like pronouncing it different every single time. Anywho, and then obviously our mossy cobblestone. Then we went ahead and actually got these structurized shingles going that we are actually using in the colony itself, which I feel like it helps it tie it in a little bit. And then also your cool little aesthetics here. So this is our main walking area out front of the wall here. We have more of our trees, which we integrated in. I feel like it really made it look like, it's been here for some time. The trees have grown in and full and in places that, they probably really shouldn't have gone to, like they've gone over the sides of the wall here, which is pretty cool. And then just, yeah, the aesthetics. So we got some crates and things like that. We got these awesome hedges from Quark. Definitely recommend these. They're really nice. They don't connect to these walls here, which is very convenient. And it definitely keeps that separation, adds that depth of field to what you're looking at. And then that's pretty similar all the way down here, all the way along the wall. We've added in more of the wall, spruced it up a little bit, and we've added in a whole heck of a lot of trees to give it some depth. So previously that had all been just an empty field where we're planning to expand our mine colony. We haven't gotten to it yet, and it's going to sit on the back burner for a little bit of time here just because mine colonies is extremely tedious. And I've just that aspect of it has put it off just a little bit to me at this time. So again, down the line we'll get there, but for now we put in some trees just to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And then we have some additional things going on getting built down here. Nothing too crazy there. But coming back over here to the main entryway, we did add in a nice little touch that actually took up a lot of time to get done, but I think it really adds to it. So you come up to here, you have the main gate, which is currently closed, and you might be wondering how you get in. Well, we have a nice little rustic chain button. I love these. They're such a cool aesthetic button to use. We just pull this, and that is right. The gate goes down for us. So this is using the create mod, and that's actually what today's whole episode is going to be around, is create. We're going to get into a little tutorial in just a little bit here around another build that we did. So I'm not going to dive too far into this. I just wanted to show you guys that we got this up and going. And I'll really quickly show you downstairs as well, just so you can see the inner workings of this setup. So encased fans, chain drives, all into a speed controller here, changing the speed over and getting it all hooked up to some linear chassis and sticky mechanical pistons with obviously its extensions to go up the desired height there. Again, I'll get it more into that a little bit later, but this again in turn is the way that we set this one up. Now I do want a preference. I am no expert at create. I am still learning, like a lot of people are out there, because this mod is ever growing and it offers a lot of different functionalities utilizing this mechanical power that we are producing for a lot of different functionalities, just in general, different, ways of moving things around, which is really cool. That's why I like it so much. So I understand there are way better and probably more convenient ways to do this, but this is what I am going with for now. So if you guys have tips or tricks, definitely leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say around this mod. But with the gate down, it makes the entranceway look way, way bigger, which is so cool. It's a lot more grandiose to walk through this now with it down. But having it up obviously gives us that protection from, invaders or things like that. So the one trick I will call out though with this build is the way that we had it set up. You have to have solid blocks up the height that you want off the linear chassis. For those of you who are familiar with the Create mod. And so what we had to go with are these spruce posts, which technically count as blocks, which is nice. And those acted as our like gate bars. And then I put in this dark glass behind it because we couldn't just leave it empty. And if I put a block in there, it just didn't look right. And I wanted to be able to see through to the other side. So I used the dark glass because it actually would move with the structure. I tried other glasses and they didn't really work that well. And it also casts a shadow that would be relatively similar to what the lighting may look like underneath this closed gateway here. So I think it turned out great. And again, a super happy build, or I'm super happy with this build, I should say. And there will be more to come around this build over here, this whole wall, and adding more to maybe our mine colonies at some point. But again, this isn't the whole focal aspect of the episode. There's something way cooler that we are going to talk on. So we're going to come over here to our main swampy temple, as we call it, because it technically still isn't a swamp. Actually, I think it's technically, well, it's in a forest, river, and a tropical rainforest, actually. That's what the biomes are, but I still call it a swamp. But anyway, this is the big boy right here. So as you guys can see, we have torn down our railway structure. For those of you who aren't familiar, it was one of the earlier projects that we were I was considering getting up and going, which was a sky rail that would connect all the different parts of our kingdom. So our main kind of area here, and we would connect it over to our Britannia area here. This is the station that we had up and going, and then it would ultimately connect over to here in our mine colonies, and then maybe even loop around and somehow connect through the main gate and over to our tool setup over here, or our mechanical setup, where we have all of our refined storage, our environmental core, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, that got placed on the wayside for some time and ultimately just didn't get completed. And I felt like I wasn't motivated to do it for a couple different reasons. One of them being we fly most everywhere we go. Either we're going to be walking or we're going to be flying. We have creative flight from our angel ring, for those of you who do not know. That is how we can float around like this. It's not a jetpack. It is the angel ring, which is a little bit tricky to actually get to, but we did get to it. And it allows us to have creative flight. So I find myself flying or walking. So it's like, why would I want necessarily a rail system other than for cool aesthetics? Well, I thought of a different way that would offer a cool aesthetic while also offering something that we could potentially use on a regular basis. So I decided, let's tear everything down and let's make an underwater raising walk bridge. I think the wording fits, right? For short, I just call it the Bridge of Pain because it was a pain in the butt to make this. We spent a good couple of hours going through, figuring out how it would logistically work, and actually getting it put in place, encountering some obstacles, and obviously overcoming them as well. So, without further ado, let's take a peek at this. So all we have to do, click this button here, and that's right. It raises up a walkway all the way across in sections, so it kind of stair steps its way up as you walk across. Now you might be wondering, well, what if you go back the opposite way, or if you come from the opposite way, or if you're just looking in this direction? Is it going to go down in the same way? Well, no. I have it set up to do the reverse. So now it's going to go down and we can actually see it all going down in that direction, which is really cool. And then if I bring it back up, it'll start on this end. So I have it set up so it'll actually start on the end that you are standing on, depending, obviously clicking the correct button. You know, if you're standing on this end, you click this button, you're good to go. So yeah, this is an awesome setup. I love it so much. When it's sitting on the ocean floor or on this bay floor, you can still obviously see there's something there, but it is tucked away. And this is what, I think it's 3 blocks of water that is on top of it. Now, there's a couple things to note. I'm going to show you downstairs real quick in the mechanic room, but I first want to talk on the water itself. So it gets a little bit tricky when you're doing this, mainly because you have all of that water that's sitting on top of this walkway that is going to be pushed upwards. So the first thing that we encountered was that if you didn't have blocks of source water on the end, it would not refill what was broken by the lifting walkway and the lowering walkway. So let me show you an example here. We're actually going to break this over here, which are technically our water sources. I'm going to need my chalice to replace this later, but I'll put in some stone here and I'll show you guys what I'm talking on. This was the first obstacle we ran into. So if we now raise this bad boy up, it's going to raise normally. It'll be perfectly fine when it comes up to the level where we can actually walk across it. However, when we place it back down, it's not going to fill in properly. Now, it's not filling in properly from this side. Once it actually hits the last one that goes down, it'll actually start filling in. You can see the water slowly filling in towards us here, and that's because there are source blocks on the other side as well that are having this happen. But that was the first problem we ran into. So to combat that, all we did was we took out these blocks here. So those 6 blocks we took out, which are recessed before the actual bridge itself. And we just put water blocks in there, water source blocks, just like so. And then for those of you who don't know, you can actually use stairs to waterlog them. So technically you can place these down and they still will act as a water source. So this will actually combat against all of that not filling in properly, which is really cool. Let's sleep through the night real quick here, and then I'm going to show you one other obstacle we ran into with this build before we do go downstairs. So I'm going to raise it up here, just like so. And then we're actually going to hop into the water here, because the next part is under here. So as you can see, we have the walkway itself. All of the walkway is sitting on linear chassis. Now, this is another thing that we had to get it put in place. So for linear chassis, the cool thing about them is that if they're all the same and all facing the same direction, they will connect. So for these linear chassis right here, and actually I could break this real quick and I'll get down underneath so I can show you guys. So for these 9 linear chassis that make up this 3x3, they're all the same, and since they're all connected in the same direction, they will count as one moving object. And it's really nice. If we go into Create itself, you can actually see this. So going into Create, we can hit linear chassis here somewhere, right here. And this is a newer feature that they've added in relatively recently, but it has a thing that says hold W to ponder. Now the key might be different for you if it's remapped, but for me by default, it was W. So we hold W, it loads in, and it actually gives us a visual with an explanation on how these items work. And this applies across all the different items. You can hit that W and it'll give you a good tidbit of information around it. And I'll even talk on the differentiation on how if a linear chassis isn't facing the same direction, it won't connect properly and it won't act as one structure. Or if it's a secondary linear chassis, then it's not going to work as well. They have a whole bunch of things down here. You can do identify, close this out, the next scene, or replay. Like if you miss something, you could hit replay. You could also do comfy reading if you wanted to read on it. I believe you could actually pull it up. Actually, I don't know if it doesn't seem to actually work, but you could also go and see what else is associated with this block. So as you can see, you have radial chassis, super glue, stickers, slime blocks, and so on and so forth. So in order to make these linear chassis stick to the block above, we did have to put some slime on it, but I'm going to show you guys a tutorial in just a minute on how to actually set up 1 or 2 of these bad boys. Now, the other thing here, as you can see, because we didn't want them all to be going up and down at the same time, we had to switch back and forth between a linear chassis and secondary linear chassis so that it doesn't act all as one thing, but they still act in their 3x3 individual functionality, which is pretty cool. Now, in terms of the water, that was another issue because obviously this platform raises up off the ocean floor and then the water rushes in underneath to fill in these pockets, right? Well, what we had to overcome was having a secondary level of blocks here that would actually prevent the water from going down to where all of the mechanical work was. We originally had it set up where there wasn't anything here, so the water would flow in and break all of the redstone associated with this build, which was not what we wanted at all. So we were able to combat that by having this secondary layer with the mechanical pistons on it, and then just using vertical gearboxes to move the momentum up to where it needed to go, and ultimately blocking off the flow of water to any of the redstone below it. But yeah, that is pretty much the setup from the top side. Now, I'm going to take you downstairs real quick to show you the overall thing. We're not going to spend too much time there because, again, I'm just going to do a small tutorial with you guys on how this works. So I did put in elevators here so we could get down to the mechanic room. And this is it down here. So it's kind of complicated, but the basics of how we have set it up is relatively simple, along the lines of a lot of the other builds we've done with Create here. So we're using encased fans to actually create the power. Now, each 3x3 that we have set up has its own source of power, its own sticky mechanical piston, its own gear shift, its own speed controller, everything. It is individually powered and operated on its own loop, other than the redstone signal that comes to it, which is set up in kind of a messy way, but it still works. It really does work. So this is pretty much our setup for it right here. So I'm not going to go into too much on it right now with this. What we're going to do is we're going to hop upstairs and go outside, and we're going to actually set up a little demonstration of how you guys can set it up at home. So with that being said, I'll meet you guys out there. All right, guys, so we are outside now. I'm just over in this little peninsula close to our mine colony here, so I could show you guys how this ultimately works, because pretty much what ultimately ends up happening is a rinse and repeat. Every single 3x3 that is going up and going down is identically set up except for one of them. One of them is just flip-flop to a different side, but ultimately that didn't really much matter. You could have them all facing the same exact way with their power generation. So let's get started right off the bat. So first and foremost, we're going to get our magma blocks set down. So these guys are going to be for our encased fans. And I'm actually going to set mine up like how I would set it up down below. Now you'll see in a minute why I set these stair-step like so. They're diagonal from each other and not right next to each other. So we have our magma blocks down, which is going to actually power our encased fans. Now, these encased fans are really easy to make. I'm not going to go over recipes because you guys can look those up in JEI. So in order to get these placed down the right way, I hold shift and get relatively close to the block I want to place it on, and then get it down. Otherwise, it places upside down. So if you see the fan on it, that's the fan right there, it's facing the wrong way. So again, get close, hit shift, or honestly get higher up, and then hit shift down onto the block you want it to be facing towards. Now, I made a couple too many fans here, and I'm going to put those away. So those are set up pretty straightforward, right? Now, in order to get these actually going, you have to give a redstone signal to both of them. So I just go with the redstone torch because realistically, am I ever going to turn off the power? Probably not. These are probably always going to be running. So any consistent redstone source would be perfectly fine to utilize. So that's what we got going there. Next on the list is the encased chain drives. So I'm going to actually pull up the ponder on this one so you guys can understand this a little bit more. So the chain drives pretty much, they relay rotation to each other in a row. So pretty much you could just easily distribute the rotation across a number of different areas, which is really nice. they'll rotate in the same direction as well, which is good, and so on and so forth. So pretty much all I'm doing is utilizing these to connect both of the rotational sources for each here. So we're just going to plop these bad boys on top like so. And as you can see, they get connected textures in a form or fashion like so, and they're all linked together. Now, again, there's probably better ways to do this, but this is the way that I'm setting this up. Feel free to modify in any way you guys feel is useful for you, for yourself and your build. Next, from there, we're going to want to take this power and then bump up the speeds. Currently, right now, it's very slow, and that's not what we want. We don't want it to be slow. So what we're going to use are these rotation speed controllers. Now, for each of these, based on the power that's below it, I'm able to get it up to 32 overall. Now, again, you can vary it with whichever you want, with whatever speed you want it to be at, and the more power you have being produced below, the greater the ultimate speed boost you can give in these rotational speed controllers. So in order to actually get them up and going fully, you do need to take large cog wheels and throw them in there. Now, as you can see, they do generate an additional texture on top of it, just like so. And currently, they aren't moving. And that's because they're not connected. So we are going to take gearboxes. We need some vertical ones because we basically need to go at a 90 from here up to here. So I'll take a vertical gearbox just like so, and it connects in perfectly. Now I'm going to do the same over there, and it's going to be all good to go. Now, as you can see, 16 was the default, which is taking this very, very slow rotational speed here, as you can see, and changing it into this much quicker one here. Now, this one's set up to 32, so it's pretty much double what this one is going here, and you can see that it's going quite a bit faster. But if you try to go higher than 32 on this setup, you could do it, but it depends on what you have connected to it, and if it actually has enough force from it to be able to push it up and down. So really, I mean, we could bump this all the way up. 256, we wanted to do that, we could. But we add something to it that creates a pressure or a force that's going back on it, and it's going to create too much strain and stress. Now, that's a whole other area of Create. We've gone over it before. If you're interested in checking out additional details around it, I'd recommend doing some looking around on the interwebs, talking on stress and strain within the Create mod itself, because you can actually calculate it. It's actually pretty interesting. But I'm lazy. I don't calculate it, so... But anyway, so from there, what I actually did is I took some more vertical gearboxes. Pretty much all of them are going to be vertical because we're trying to face it more upwards. So we'll take that, face that up there, and then we're also going to need a shaft here because we do have this offset. Now, I guess I could explain right now why we have this offset, because if we had these both together, then the chain drives would connect up and they wouldn't be independent from each other anymore. Now, again, maybe this doesn't make that big of a difference, but I personally wanted each one to be separate. And I actually think that you can create different chain drives. You have adjustable ones. Yeah, you have an adjustable one, which, I mean, that's actually pretty interesting. I've never looked at the adjustable one exactly like chain drives, but I think you can just toggle them, I believe, if that I'm not mistaken here. That's a long video. We're not going to watch through that. We're going to stick with the tutorial here. I'm getting sidetracked. There's so much cool stuff with Create that I want to do even more with it. I want to improve on what we already have and just continue to grow. Again, I will say I am no expert here. We're just going off of what I have come to learn on my own and from the small amount of research I have done around things. Is it already getting dark? Holy smokes, I feel like I just slept and it's already getting dark. But anyway, it's offset, so we had to add this additional shaft to make sure that we could hit the same exact line for the first one there. So from here, we're going to add in our gear shift, just like so, which actually allows us to control the direction of the movement of our platforms. So we'll get a nice little sleep going here, and we are all good to go. So again, like I said, you know, what we could do is or what we had to do, I should say, not what we could do. What we had to do was actually place an additional vertical gearbox above this, above the gear shift, so that we could then add in all of the blocks around here to prevent water from getting down. Now, we added in our sticky mechanical piston, and as you can see, it only rotates on one side. So it doesn't have like our gearbox where it's on all four sides. It only rotates in one singular direction for the actual shaft within it itself. So that's why we have it set up like that. But then we have all the blocks around it. So then this prevents any water from getting down into our system. So then the same can be done for here. So we'll throw in our piston. You do want to make sure that you get it lined up properly. So let's get that in there just like so. You might have to tinker with it a little bit, but that's not too bad. You guys can get that. And then we'll get that all placed in. So this is pretty much what you would be seeing, and this is the main first steps. Obviously, you do need to add on piston extension poles for the length that you want to go. I happen to have 5 here, so we'll put on 5 on each one. But obviously, this will vary depending on how high up you need your platform to go. All right, from here, we're going to jump into our chassis. Now, like I said before, we had to differentiate them so that they didn't all go together. And I guess I could technically show you guys how that's a problem, but I feel like you probably understand why we got to keep them separate. So as you see, that's separate. If we added one here, it kind of connects in and adds like those additional textures, a connected texture. So that's not what we want. We're going to get rid of that. And then all you got to do to make secondary linear chassis is put the main ones into a crafting table and you get your secondary ones just like so. Easy peasy, and now they are separated. Next thing we're going to need is a little bit of slime. Now the slime goes on top of here, because right now these are acting as normal pistons almost. They're not going to connect to the actual block you place above it. Now, if you wanted your walkway just to be this, then you're good to go. But if you want to put some decorative blocks on top of it to actually make it look nice, then you're going to want to put a little bit of slime on it. And I'm just right-clicking the slime on it. It doesn't actually use up your slime, which is nice, but it enables it to be sticky. So then you could put on whatever block you wanted to. So let's actually take just this nice warped, Nylium? And we'll place that there. And let's get a different one. Why not? Let's do with this grassy netherrack. We'll do that then, just to mix it up. So there we go. We have our 2 different platforms here. And they will move independently if set up properly. So now we're going to get into wiring, which wiring is a little bit more tricky. So what we got to do is set things up the way that we want them. So we're going to want 2 blocks here. Now you could do this in whatever direction you want it to go in, but this is pretty much how I am setting up mine. We're going to place a few blocks just like so, and then we're going to go back to create here, and we are going to get up and going some of these powered toggle latches, because this is what we use to actually, what do we run out of? Just stone? This is what we actually use to alter the direction on our gear shifts. So we put those in just like so. All right, guys, so I did the liberty of actually going through and getting a few things adjusted and set up here, just so we could streamline talking on this a little bit more. So I went ahead, I actually moved some of our blocks. So this is how you want it to be set up. So this power toggle latch has to be in this direction, facing towards, with the little redstone facing towards the gear shift. Then the input for this is from this side here. You can see that little triangle red mark there. That is the input for it. And that's the same on this side as well. So pretty much you toggle this and it moves it up and down. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to see that. Now the trick is getting into the redstone and actually wiring everything up. So I've gone ahead and crafted up what we need. So I did get into the mod More Red. I highly recommend doing it because it is really, really awesome. Pretty much you can get these red alloy ingots, and you do need to use the jumbo furnace, which is what we saw at the start of the episode. These are really easy to make. You just take 27 furnaces, place them in a 3x3x3, and you're good to go. You can also integrate it into your refined storage system, which is awesome. So we got that set up. You could create this red alloy wire then, which you pretty much can place anywhere. And you can also put carpet on them, or I'm sorry, not carpet, wool, to get them actually covered, like a covered cable. That also includes a bunch of different gates that you can make. I'm not going to touch on all of them because there's a lot of different ones and we're running really short on time here. But the main one we want is a XOR gate, I believe. Yeah, the XOR gate. So pretty much what this allows to happen is a signal can come in from one side and affect this output here, but it won't jump over to the opposite side and affect it again. So for example, if we put a redstone signal right here, we put a redstone signal right here, maybe. Going on. Hang on, let me just get a lever. That'll be easier to do with a lever. Working before. It always works until you want to show it, then it doesn't work. So if we put a lever on there, as you can see, the power goes to it, it raises it up, but it doesn't jump to this other side. As you can see, this actual red alloy wire is not lit up. Now, if we close it, same thing is going to happen, but it doesn't toggle that. A button would actually work better to show that. So, but we can actually put this down for the time being. But that's why we're using these, because pretty much the way I have it set up is on two different circuits, right? One circuit is for this facing way. So one circuit is focused on this button over here and this relay or this redstone link from create. So when that button gets pushed, it starts the process from this side and goes all the way down. Now, obviously, if you're standing on this side, like I showed you guys earlier, you would want it to start from this side and then go down. So that's a whole different one where it starts on this end and then goes towards that direction using a bunch of different relays or repeaters, I believe. Yeah, repeaters, I'm sorry. So in order to actually get this set up, if you didn't want to use repeaters and you wanted it to go at the same exact time, this is what you would do. We would just tie these in like so with all of this redstone wiring, and you would be good to go. You hit the button, and it raises them both at the same exact time at the same exact speed. Now, you probably could adjust the speed if you really wanted to, and that could affect it as well, but honestly, your better bet is to just use a repeater. And the way you do that is you just take out whichever block you can fit it in at, so this one works for us, and then just bump up the timing on it. So pretty much, you hit this, the redstone signal will hit this one first, it'll be delayed 4 ticks, and then it'll hit the next one. And then similarly for this side, we would want it as well. Hits this one first, no problem, but then it'll take 4 ticks to hit the second one. So let's say we're coming up from this way, like we would over on our actual bridge itself, and we want it to go up. We hit the button here, so it starts raising this one first, and then it starts raising the second one because of that delay. Now, if you pull it back down, similarly, it's going to start lowering this one first, and then lowering the next one. Now we go to the opposite side, and it's going to raise this side first. So pretty straightforward. Then you just add in repeaters as you see fit to keep it going down the line. If you wanted a more delay, you could definitely do that. There's actually a repeater from Create that you could get up and going. It's the adjustable repeater, which is really cool because you could switch it out, put it in like so. You could have tick delays if you wanted to, so like a normal repeater, but I believe it goes up to 16, or no, it goes even higher. It goes up to 19 ticks. You could delay it 19 ticks, or you could actually get into seconds if you wanted to, which is pretty cool. And it goes pretty high in seconds too. Like if you really wanted to have it be delayed a lot, you could do it like that as well. But like, let's say if we only wanted a let's say 2 tick delay instead of a 4 tick delay. I mean, you could do it on a normal repeater. So actually, let's increase it. Let's say we wanted a 6 tick delay. There we go. So we hit this now, and it'll be a 6 tick delay before it kicks off the second one. So really, really cool options for this kind of setup. And as you guys saw below here, it's just a rinse and repeat. That's why I just wanted to go over 2 examples of it, but it's pretty much the same exact thing. As you see, we're using the XOR gates here. And I can even come down midway and show you guys. We're using XOR gates with power coming from one side for one circuit and power coming from the other side for another circuit. Now, as you see here, we actually have double repeaters for this. So we have one repeater here and then another repeater here just to increase the delay overall. But it, again, is very similar to the setup that we had upstairs. And then the only other thing you have to do is link them in via a redstone link from create. Now, these guys, I've been over them before. You need to make the one that's actually receiving the signal actually be a receiver. So you have to shift right click on it and it'll get this little dish on the antenna there. You just need to set the frequency then. And then up here, we have another one. As you see, no dish on this one because this is the actual sending transmitter and it's set to the right frequency. So then we hit that, it sends the frequency down and kicks off the whole process of creating our underwater pathway, actually having it rise up to the top. Now that is an issue there. If there's any fish or squid in the way, they could, ineffective or inadvertently, I should say, be harmed in this process. But I think ultimately it is awesome. I'm super proud of this build. I'm super happy with it, and I can't wait to tinker with it a little bit more and make it even more efficient where possible. But yeah, this is the example setup. I know I went through it relatively quick. I mean, it's a 35-minute episode, and I still feel like we went through it relatively quickly. But if you guys have questions on it, feel free to leave them down below. I'll try to answer what I can. If you do have tips on what additionally could be done to maybe improve it, I'd love to hear it as well. Again, I do understand that there's a gajillion different ways that we could probably set this up, and that's kind of the cool thing about it. But I do love hearing different options on it, so we could at least try to implement them, if not in this build, maybe in a different build. So again, leave those comments down below. If you are new here and you did enjoy this episode, definitely hit that subscribe button and bell notification. I'll let you know every single time a new episode is posted here on the channel. I do stream over on Twitch. I mentioned that earlier. Link in the description down below, along with the link to the Discord if you feel like joining in the community. I do also post updates around the channel and Twitch over there, so feel free to check that out if you are interested. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it so very much, and I will catch you all in our next episode. Take it easy.